Let's go to the single whip now. Shift back, leaving the arms out, pivot on the right heel, and turn to the corner. Shift to the right, forming the bird's beak with the right hand, where the thumb touches the fingertips and the wrist is pulled down. The right forearm is 45 degrees, the upper arm 45 degrees, the left palm under the bird's beak. Pivot on the left toe and the right arm moves to the corner. And notice how the movement of the body sends out the right arm. The wrist, the end of the wrist, leads like this. So you're not going this way, you're going directly to the corner. As you're turning, the energy comes up, you're expanding, and then sinking down. As the sinking passes the center of the body, you're pivoting on your toe. Once it passes the center, then you take your step. Shift to the left arm comes up, bring the rear toes in, the left palm presses forward. So the left arm moves up, close to the body, and then a little bit of a press forward, but the arm stays close to the body. You're not moving out here, and you're not moving out to the side. You're coming in line with the left leg, so that the left arm and the left leg are in line. Okay. Let's point out some things with single leg. To shift back, I simply relax my hips and allow the body to sink, and let the hands stay in the same place so that the hands float in. As I turn, the hips turn first, then the ribs, then the shoulders, and then the arms. As I shift back, the hips turn first, then the ribs, then the shoulders and the arms. So in each case, the hips initiate and it flows through the body. Now the hips sink, energy flows to the center. I step, sink, and now as the hips rise up, the hips, ribs, and the top of the body. So the hips initiate, the rest of the body follows. Now the hips actually link one movement to another. So as the last part of the body expands, in this case, the palms and the head expand, the hips already are going to do the next movement. So the hips are starting to sink back and shift to the right as the hands and the head are moving out to the corner. And now the ribs and the top of the body. As the hands and the head are about to relax and drop down, the hips are already starting to turn and expand up. Like this. So you're linking one movement to the other by having the end of the expansion linked to the beginning of the sinking of the hips. As everything sinks down to the ground, the end of the hands and the head relaxing is the beginning of the hips expanding. So that allows every part of the body to flow one movement into the other. Let's do that from here. And I'm going to say hips, ribs, top. The hips sink, the ribs sink, the top sink. And as the hands drop like this and the head relaxes, the hips are starting to turn to the left. Now the hips, the ribs, and the top. As the top expands here, the hips are beginning to sink and shift to the right. So now the hips sink, the ribs, and the top. As the top sinks down, the hips are ready to move upwards. And then, so the hips, the ribs, the top, as the top comes up, the hips are ready to sink down, moving that way. So now the hips sink, the ribs, the top. And now, as the top sinks down, the hips are ready to move up. Hips, ribs, and top. And this is the same throughout the form. So I'm going to do that and exaggerate it so you see what I mean. So each part of the body moves like this. What that does is it allows the spine to turn and twist and stretch and relax. The spine is massaged throughout the whole form. Every joint is stretched and relaxed. So through each movement, through each breath, you have a stretching and a relaxing of each joint and of each muscle. So in a sense, it provides you stretching, but in a very gentle way. Between each in-breath and out-breath, you're getting a complete cycle of stretching. Okay, now, the energy, the momentum, think of it as momentum, sinks down the inside of the leg and rises up the inside of the leg. So as I shift back, I'm shifting and sinking the momentum, the weight of the body, to the inside of the leg, and then it moves up the inside of the leg. If I were to shift it to the outside of the leg, it would look like this. See, then I'd be off balance. I'm going to do it from this direction just so you can see, not to confuse you. I'm sinking to the inside of the leg now. Okay, now I'm sinking to the outside of the leg. It's very different. Here's the inside of the leg. Inside of the left leg. And now it flows up the inside of the left leg. It sinks down to the inside of the right. Up the inside of the right. Okay? Now as it's sinking down and coming up, because you're turning, it sinks down, and as you're turning, that momentum, that energy, moves in a circle under the foot and then comes back up to the inside of the leg. So that momentum never breaks, it never stops. It sinks down, curves, and comes up. See? It sinks down, curves, and comes up. Now, one of the very important things in order to accomplish that is to relax your back as the front expands. And as the front relaxes, to allow the back to expand. So, as here we're pushing and the front is expanding, the back relaxes. We shift back, now the front sinks, and you notice that the back widens. Okay, so here, this is the place where it's very important to know that. As you're expanding up, the back, and the lower back especially, drops down. And that allows the front to come up. If the back and the front came up, it would be like this. Right? So you want the back to relax, the back of the legs also to relax, as the front of the body expands up. Now the front sinks, the back widens. Like you're sitting in an old chair. The front expands, the back sinks. Now the front drops. The back widens. And now the front expands, the back sinks. So when I talk about rising and sinking, I use the term press up. And pressing up means that as you're breathing in, the lower abdomen breathes down towards the ground. So if you put your pinky on your belly button and then the lower thumb on the belly button, as you breathe in first, the lower hand should expand downwards, and then the upper hand should expand forwards. So you're breathing like a clamshell down into the ground, setting your bottom clamshell securely on the ground, and then the front expands forward. Right? So breathing in, you're really pressing the breath down. So I say pressing up. It means you're pressing down with the breath, and the resultant energy comes up through the body and expands the body. William Chen explains that it's like stepping on a ball, a rubber ball, like a beach ball. And as you press down, the ball is pressurized and sends energy up the body. So the whole point is that as you're breathing in and expanding, you're also expanding downwards towards the ground, not just upwards. Otherwise, it would look like this, the form, the single whip. So here, let's say I'm just lifting up. I'd be coming like this, sinking down. Lifting up, sinking down, and stepping. So that's why Chen Mencheng says, don't pop up and down. He doesn't mean that there should be absolutely no flow to the form. It's just that some people, they don't understand the compression that's involved with the root. And so they kind of pop up, they pop out of the root and back into the root. The root is pressurized all the time. So it's just like in the old days we had fish tanks, you know, and we had piston pump air compressors, the pistons. So when we put the fish tank tube into like a diver or something in the fish tank, you'd get a puff of air as the piston would work. And if we wanted a continuous puff of air, I mean a continuous flow of air, what we would do is we'd put the tube into a glass jar and then take another tube and take it out of the glass jar. The cap was on top and we poked 2 holes in the top. One tube would go in and then the other tube would go out into the fish tank. So the glass jar acted as a buffer, holding the pressure of the air so that when the air came out in the fish tank, it was continuous. And the same is done with bagpipes, you know, same idea. So we're sinking down and the weight sinks down and breathing out. But when we breathe in, we're also pressing down, we're pressing with the breath. So the root is continuously pressed, whether it's with the weight on the out breath or with the breath on the in breath. You have a continuous pressurization, and it creates this, I think it's called a baffle, if I'm not mistaken, but it's like that glass jar that allows the pressure to be continuously charging up the body. So, but that's the idea. So when we're breathing out, we're sinking into that root, but when we're breathing in, we're pressing the breath down into the root as well, and that presses us up, press up. And now sink down, the weight is sinking down, press up, and then sink down, shift into the left, and press up. Right? So let me, I'm going to do this way just to show you what you couldn't see before. This is not the proper direction you'll be following. So here's the push, right here. Right, so